Hi everyone, this is Jason Zach from Nathaniel School of Music. Here are my top music tools for musicians at any skill level, whether you're an absolute beginner or an advanced seasoned pro, gigging, touring, recording, and so on. These are my top 10 music tools. Most of them would be software, web based applications, or mobile apps, but I've tried my best to keep it as free as possible so that you don't have to spend a buck for it, or at least where the trial version is good enough to get by. Before we get started, it'll be nice if you can consider hitting that subscribe button and turn on the bell for regular notifications, and do consider being our supporter on Patreon for as low as $5 a month, where you get access to my handwritten notes, behind the scenes clips, footage, MIDI files, backing tracks, notation of all my lessons, and so on. Okay, let's get cracking. So tool number one, I'm sure you'll agree, this is very obvious, a metronome. You need a metronome to kind of not just keep time, but also to inspire you to even play music. So what happens with me is, a hack is, even if I'm really distracted and if I'm not at all aligned with playing music today, when that metronome is on, something about it pushes me to do something. I might do an exercise, I might do a song, or I'll get into a zone. And once I'm in a zone, then I can actually start creating and making something, producing or improvising some music or the other. Now with a metronome tool, the one I recommend first of all is Pro Metronome by EUM Labs. I've done a separate video on that. The way you should use a metronome, in my opinion, these are just my guidelines, or maybe you should find a tool that does this for you. Do not have that tick tock 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 tick tock. You don't want that high pitched thing, especially when you're practicing. Just keep it uniform in a tone that works for you. Don't have differences of tones. And the other thing you can consider looking into are the subdivision modes of these metronomes. You could have a metronome giving you a groove, like a ting ticka ding ticka ding ticka ding ticka ticka ting ting ticka ting ting, like a salsa groove. There are all these apps out there which do so much of work. And some Pro Metronome, the app I use, also has a rhythm trainer mode. So sometimes it'll play you 3, 4, 1, but then it'll take it off here and there. It'll just take it off at will, so to speak. Okay, the next app I would say all musicians should have, for a lot of reasons, would be a tuner. A tuner is basically something you could put on a cell phone, especially a cell phone, because a cell phone has its own mic. My recommendation is to get a tuner that is both frequency and note based, with a reference pitch generator. So if you want a pitch from anywhere, let's say you're in an a cappella group or something like that, a cappella people will have no clue of the starting sa or the root of the scale. So you get this app to give you like a, and then you do your song or whatever it may be, right? So get it with a pitch. But the reality of the situation is, when you do tune your instruments, I mean, even the pitch of the fan rotating or a traffic horn could mess up the tuning. So if you're professionally tuning an instrument, I repeat, if you're doing this professionally, do not use a tuner, a cell phone tuner, especially on stage. Come on, with all of the noise out there, are you actually trusting the most important part of your concert, which is tuning your violin or your trumpet or your guitar with a cell phone tuner? So you have to understand what is its purpose. Its purpose is pretty much house practice, like getting by. It's all just to rehearse. It's not during a show. During a show, you'd want to plug that into a polytune or a processor or a clip-on tuner, a professional tuner, to actually get this done, properly. Okay, so the app I would recommend is INS Tuner, because it's also good for producers and sound engineers. I can also help my sound engineer sometimes at concerts by telling him or her that, hey, 660 hertz is the reason why there is feedback caused, not because of anything you are doing, not because of anything I am doing. It's because of the venue we are playing in. It could be the hall, the church, the cafe, or whatever. Each room has its own resonant frequency. So you can figure that out in the bathroom. It's very easy. Sing low notes chromatically, and one note will really scare you. It'll be a huge rumble. Okay. In my case, it's E flat. So what you can do is help your sound engineer, and you'll also try and get a tuner with a spectral analyzer, so you can see where are the peaks of frequencies. And if you are a sound engineer, well, this is a must. You have to get a good tuner. But having said that, rely on clip-ons as a professional and rely on plugins. I'm in no way saying that tuning is professional. Okay, moving on. This is very, very crucial for non-drummers, and you might be guessing it. Drum loops. So, not always do we have access to jam or, recreate our riffs or put our music together with the groove section of the band. So, if you've come up with a groovy part, a riff like now, the advantage of playing this with a drummer is, one is he'll pull me out of my comfort zone at times. He might play this a bit faster. He might play this with a bit more swing. He'll do a few fills, which now I can steal from him, in that sense. So I don't play in a very sort of one-dimensional way. I'm playing to also support the other artists, which in the initial stages, due to logistical issues, you might not have the drummer coming into your room every day. You might not even be allowed to play drums so loud in your neighborhood. So because of that, you could use YouTube drum loops. There are so many, and you could literally go to YouTube and type 85 BPM blues drums, or 92 BPM funk drums, or 135 BPM dance loops. I am saying this randomly, but I'm sure that it can literally be possible, and you'll get 20-30 such options. And this is a very, very important way for a lot of musicians to compose and to improvise and just to practice. You can also use some tools like Apple. Back in the day, had this app called Music Memos, which I used to love to kind of be an AI drummer even before this age of AI has taken over. But now in Logic Pro, they actually have this AI drumming feature, and I'm sure it's there in a few other apps. Let me know in the comments. I'm also interested to figure it out. So what happens is, you play some kind of groove, and then the drums will kind of figure out a groove using AI technology, which, it's not going to give you a great groove, but it'll definitely give you something you can go by for that duration of time. Again, an AI drummer is never going to replace a real drummer, but while you play with this particular drum tool, you can then convey your idea better to your fellow musician. And another good tool for realistic rhythm practice would be to purchase a couple of loop libraries like Eartrock, which I have. I trust that a lot in my riffs, and a few others. There are a lot of free things out there. A lot of Facebook ads keep showing up. If you just search drum loops, you'll get a bunch of them. I love to search for odd meter drum loops. It really inspires me to practice. Yeah, and of course, nothing beats a jam session with a real drummer. So having said all this, play with a drummer. If you want to get better at timing, play with a drummer. If you want to compose some of your best stuff ever, play with a drummer. If you want to groove or learn how to groove or groove better, play with a drummer. And if you want to gain discipline as a musician in general, play with a drummer. Maybe I should do another video on why you should actually play with a drummer. I'll get a drummer here and show you. Now, extending past drum loops, we have this thing called practice tracks, as we call them. So a practice track basically will give you almost the entire song minus the melody in most cases. So a good way to type this, starting off with YouTube, which will be free, would be just do blues backing track on B flat. Then you can filter blues backing track on B flat, harmonic minor or major or whatever, then shuffle or funk or whatever. Then you can literally do backing tracks a la a certain song. Like you can say backing track for Gravity by John Mayer, let's say. So these are an extension or an evolution from your traditional karaoke tracks, which people used to actually sell for. And to be honest, I think the age of karaoke is done and dusted, because the musicians are now able to use AI technology to split sections of the song. So you're actually, in some cases, even hearing the real song's elements. And these are actual musicians trying to make a living by making the backing tracks. So they don't use MIDI, they actually play the guitar and you're playing with them. So you could do YouTube backing tracks. You can also do an app called iReal Pro. It's a great app because if you're learning especially a jazz standard or practicing, you can change the speed of it real time. You can change the key. You can change how it looks. I'm a trumpet player, so I like to see it on my pitch, so to speak. You can also hear it back and jam on different grooves. You have good exporting possibilities. So iReal Pro is a great app. And something just to plug myself into the mix, you can check out some of my daily riffs, which I release on riffs.jasonzachmusic.com. In fact, I have another YouTube channel where I do my performances. So if you're interested in getting the backing tracks of any of those compositions, maybe you want to sing over it or practice anything really, play a guitar solo or drum over it, I can give you the stems and you can add your own stuff and kind of make it your own, so to speak. It's DAW importable, so check that out as well. You also have websites which do this loop based music creation, but in this case I'm just talking about practicing. Which brings me to the next point rather smoothly, which is record yourself. As you practice, as you jam, as you arrange or do anything, you need to record yourself. And I guess the easiest way to do it is a cell phone app like voice memos on a phone, where you record something, but after you record it, when it is recording, always respect the process. You should think that when it's recording, it's like you've started a running race or something like that. You have to deliver. If you've chosen to run that race, you have to go and finish the course. So that's how I would use the recording the phone recorder. If you don't find it in an environment which is very respectful, it won't work for you. So record your pieces, record your jams or your ideas, and also save it, because sometimes it'll be called new recording 20125 AB whatever, and or it'll be named by the place you're in, let's say Jamaica somewhere or whatever. So you need to name it well. That is very important, and back it up on a cloud storage. Now if all that doesn't work, you might as well do what we all should do as musicians, which is learn a recording software, a professional recording software. Invest some time. So if your goal is this simple, you have an Elise's drum machine in your house which sends out stereo. You already have your drum loop, your drummer which you can jam to. Very good. You're a keyboardist, so you have a keyboard. So now what do you need? You need to kind of jam with that Elise's drummer. One way to do it is put that drum machine on, connect it to some speaker system or headphones, and it's going to be an absolute chaotic process without a software and without a proper audio interface. So once you get an audio interface that has maybe 4 channels, like maybe a Focusrite or an iConnectivity, you can bring the drum machine in as stereo. You can bring the piano in as stereo, make 2 tracks in Reaper, or a DAW of my choice is Reaper. I use Reaper. It's a great software. You should try it out. You also have GarageBand, Logic, Pro Tools, and whatnot. But for the purpose of practicing and just exploring music and music technology, get an audio interface, 4 channels, get a few cables, jack to jack or TS cables, plug in everything, one time setup neatly at the back of your desk or something. Start recording, and every time you record, there'll be an export button. You can send it to your teacher. Maybe I'm your teacher. You could send it to me. Why not? Or put it up on your Instagram. Please your fans and followers, because you'll get pristine audio quality. Use a DAW, use a recording software. Very, very important. So I finished 5 out of the 10 music tools. Now, moving forward, we're getting a bit more technical, but still very, very important. Point number 6 would be a notation software. A lot of us, even old schoolers, like myself included, we used to rely mostly on handwriting everything, going to a store, buying a book from a store, and the investment of time and money. These things still cost a lot of money. They've never, like, the price of a notation book has not dropped at all, when there are way better tools in the market. So what I would recommend is get a software like MuseScore. Not like MuseScore. You have to get MuseScore only because it's open source. You don't spend anything for it. What you can do is you can notate your ideas. You can even hear it back. Or if your teacher or someone gives you a MIDI file, like I do for a lot of my YouTube videos, you can import that MIDI file into MuseScore and it'll play back. You can read the notation. You'll see the piano diagram. You can adjust the volume of everything. It has its little mixer and so on and so forth. So, the other advantage of MuseScore is it has a kind of a learning community where you can download scores of songs based on a peer review system. Let's say fur release you want. You can get the fur release which everyone vouches for, like the proper fur release, not the one you get in your local store which has been branded as popular because it's like literally the only thing there. Moving on to the 7th tool, this will be called, as I'm calling, a stem splitting tool or a stem splitter software. If you take an app like Songmaster Pro, where you download it and you own it kind of for life, or Moises, which is more of a web app. It also has a downloadable thing, it's a little buggy, to be honest. But still, Songmaster Pro and Moises are there. What can happen is it'll really help you to transcribe music better and also practice your music in different situations. So let's say you're importing a song like any Michael Jackson song. It's never going to be exactly tuned to A440. You'll realize that with Beat It, Thriller and whatnot. You play it, it just doesn't go. So in a Moises or a Songmaster Pro, you can actually adjust the pitch in cents, not just in semitones or tones, which is also possible. Then you can remove the vocals, which is great because the vocals are so loud in most mixes. I'm a piano player, so I want to hear my part. A great way to do it is to remove the loudest part. Or maybe solo only my part, which is piano, isn't it? So a stem splitter tool can be really useful that way. You can even make your own arrangements of the song by downloading and exporting that content and making it your own, so to speak. Also, for practice purposes, reduce the tempo, it's too fast. Also for transcription purposes, because you can't hear that lick which the saxophonist is playing. So slow it down and solo the saxophone. And what more do you have? You have a great lick. So you might as well learn it. However, with AI technology, they are kind of also scaring us music teachers, because they also detect the chords. They detect a lot of musical information. So I tend to turn those off. Otherwise, we might get too reliant on the tool. And to be honest, they are getting really good. So their chord detection, we keep saying, hey, you can't trust it. It's actually good, to be honest. So the best way we can proceed, I feel, with this music AI technology is to use the tools that just save you time. Don't use the tools that you think you need. In this case, if you think you need chords, but then if you think twice and say, hey, shouldn't I only figure out chords so that it's going to help me in the long run, then you should go with that option. Go with the human option. Otherwise, they'll take over us. Okay. Point number 8. This would be publishing tools. So there are some great tools out there, like first of all YouTube. So these are very encouraging mediums, I think, wherein you have a kind of a weekly or a monthly goal to showcase your craft, to say, no matter what, every month I have a fan following, I have an audience. It could even be my relatives, brother, sister, work colleagues, doesn't matter. But at least you have a certain group of people who are looking forward to your content on a weekly basis, so, or a monthly basis. So all of you should get a YouTube channel, which I guess you do. You have a YouTube account, but may not be a YouTube channel. Start uploading, start taking the time to make some videos. I know a lot of you do. Whoever does are sharing it with me. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. Another great publishing tool will be an app which I used recently called Lander, which has a lot of things in one. It has a mastering software, it has a distribution platform, and it has a lot of plugins, loops, and all that you should try out. Point number 9 is very obvious, but a few people don't seem to use these streaming services. So be a bit clever with how you use streaming services, is what I'm actually saying. However, if you don't have a streaming service like Spotify or Apple Music, get one, because it's very important. How else will you find songs these days, right? Just be a bit careful with how you use streaming services, because I'm reminded of an older generation where you actually take the pains to go spend money at a local store like a Planet M, buy a cassette or a CD or a DVD, two sides, whatever, of your favorite concert or album or whatever, and you consume that product as an album. What's happening now with Spotify and other mediums is they are deciding what you should hear based on what you heard earlier, based on their own algorithm. They are just feeding you content. So with streaming services, you need to learn how to discover music through it. You have to actually do some Google research, do some actual brainstorming to see what you should listen to. Ask humans, ask your friends, ask people you don't know. That's always a great suggestion. Back in the day, we used to play in a lot of the IIT colleges in India. And a fun fact is the IITians of our country seem to have the best taste in music. I never knew that. So almost all the prog rock, metal bands and rock bands and some very underground music was suggested by IITians, because I don't know, maybe back then they had good internet. Let me know in the comments. So ask people for song suggestions and don't consume artists song by song. Don't think Deep Purple is Smoke on the Water, Eagles is Hotel California, and whatever else. You need to look at it as albums. Listen to that entire album and consume it. And the last point before we wind up, it's not an app as such, it's more the gear you have around you, and I'm just calling this as listening environment. So when you consume music from the internet, which is mostly how we consume music these days, if you have a good internet connection, if you found some great songs through a lot of research and you're like invested in learning this well, and you go to some Amazon Great Indian Festival sale and you get some horrible 200 or 500 rupee Bluetooth earphone which just gives you no audio. It gives you some of the worst frequencies that you need. Well, that's a problem. So you might as well start with your own self and what your ears need. Your ears need good quality listening environment, good quality headphones, monitor speakers for the best possible experience. From your end, you've done your work. And then you rely on a streaming platform like Spotify or Apple Music. Apple Music, I think, is slightly better than Spotify in terms of quality, not YouTube. YouTube doesn't sound good, trust me. Rely more on Apple and Spotify. Those mediums sound good. Then you're going to hear so much more data in that song. You'll probably, just because of a better headphone, your ears will get better. How do I train my ears? Well, get a better headphone or a earphone. Start with that, and then, of course, come to our school. We'll help you. Okay. So, in conclusion, these are my top 10 music tools. We've looked at the metronome, the tuner, drum loops, practice tracks, DAW or any recording tool, notation software. We definitely recommend MuseScore, a stem splitter. Recommended is Songmaster Pro. You'll find a link in the description. Moises is also there. Publishing tools like Lander, YouTube, which we all use, streaming services, and getting a good listening environment for your ears. Okay, and also protect your ears. That is very, very important, very crucial. So thanks a ton for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to cover something else in the future, and don't forget to subscribe, give the video a like, share the video around, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.